Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 4 of Why Sci-Fi. Hopefully, a staple now on BookTube. And in the spirit of one-upping the previous guest, we have an amazing guest today. It's Ira.
Wow, this book kind of messed me up a little.
SF Words of Wonder. Ira, welcome to the show. I'm very excited about this one.
Thanks for having me. I'm not sure about one-upping, but I'm happy to be on.
I'm sure you're going to be amazing. We're going to have a lot of fun, get into some serious topics. Before we get into anything, I just want to congratulate you because before we got on, I just looked at your channel a little bit just to see what I've missed maybe. And I noticed that you've crossed over the boundary of 2,000 subscribers, which is kind of huge. You're well ahead of me in that regard. So congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, try not to look at that stuff too much, but I noticed it.
That's right. I know. We were just talking about that, how we don't care about necessarily the statistics side of BookTube. But still, it's nice to know that people are watching. And I have to say, if anyone out there, before we get into anything, is not following Ira or hasn't checked out the channel, you have to. There's so many incredible book reviews. And I think in this day and age when everyone's saying book reviews are like dead, nobody's watching it, you are sticking with it and you're doing a fabulous job. And I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, I'm getting all the people that actually want to see them, I guess.
The few out there. When I talk about books, actually, are on SF Words of Wonder. So that's great. So before we get into anything, there's going to be some interesting topics, some heavier themes. You know, this is a serious show, Ira. Yeah. This is no joke. Before we get into that, let's do some rapid fire questions. I always like to start with that, or lately anyway, just to, break the ice, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. So you read a lot of classic sci-fi, but I do remember you're saying that previously to starting your current kind of journey that you're on, you did read quite a bit of modern stuff. So the question is, modern or classic? And let's say classic starts or modern starts with like Hyperion, I think 1989. So anything in the 90s, and now that's modern. Previous to that, classic. What do you prefer?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with classic right now, but I still do like the modern stuff, the way they get into the characters. You can kind of really sink yourself into a lot of them are big series, but right now I'm just really enjoying the classic stuff, which is kind of where I started. So it's kind of fun going back, but I do want to read more modern stuff here in the future. We'll just have to see.
Is it because you're finding the modern stuff derivative and you like to find the origins of kind of each storyline, or is it something else about the classic SF that appeals to you?
That's a good question. There's some of those classic books, when you get into them, there's not necessarily the best character development, like I said, but there's this kind of like instant sense of wonder that I'll get. And when I usually try to like put myself into the mind of a reader reading this when it came out, and some of it's just like amazing. And yeah, maybe it's gotten derivative and people have kind of copied some of these classic works, and it's fun to go back to the original stuff. But I feel like since I joined this little community and everybody's finding these like hidden gems out there, there's that kind of like discovery aspect of finding this long lost like science fiction novel that no one's talking about, or even an author. And so it's really fun when you kind of just like rediscover one of these older works. That's a lot of fun as well.
Interesting. So even though there's been more time, some of these works have been lost in time.
Yeah, they're out of print, There's not ebooks of some of these. It's just like you have to find the old paperback in some used bookstore, and it might be a little musty, but that's kind of the only way to find some of this stuff.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that's a great answer. I like that a lot. So now moving forward, do you prefer space opera or dystopian novels? Any preference there?
Yeah, I like this question. All your previous guests, I like their takes on it. I'm going to go dystopian though. I do like space operas. I like how they can, pull all sorts of different ideas into a big narrative. But there's something that draws me to the end of the world or some sort of, dystopian take on something that's happened because of technology or diseases or civil unrest, all those kinds of things. I've always, and I think it kind of goes back to one of the first like really big books I read was The Stand, and I was like 15 or 16 years old, I think, and that's just always kind of stuck with me. And I've always sought out like good dystopian novels.
That's a great example because it's, for me, a great example for me specifically, because I think The Stand was the first big book that I read in English language.
Oh,
The
okay.
Stand was just the cover was so drew me. The two of them, the good against evil. I love the cover, and I got the book, and I think it was also the first Stephen King. I didn't know anything about Stephen King, but the book was obviously talked about at that time, and I picked it up and I read it, and I loved it. So it's a great choice. Yeah.
That was your first Stephen King book?
That would be my first. Yeah, I don't think I read anything prior to reading The Stand. I've read a lot.
Coming out of the gate.
I'm sorry.
Coming out of the gate with a banger there.
Yeah. Well, some people called it the best. So I figured I'll start with that. Not necessarily my favorite Stephen King, although I love The Stand. I think it's fantastic, but it may not be my favorite. Now, it's been a long time. I should reread it. Moving right along, Ira. Now, when you pick up a science fiction book, do you prefer to read about aliens, or do you prefer to read about artificial intelligence, robots, that sort of human technology?
Yeah, I'd say right now, definitely aliens. I like how you can go in all kinds of interesting places. I think it takes a really good author to make aliens feel really alien. And we buddy read Mote in God's Eye, and that was fantastic. It's known as like some of the best truly alien, entities out there. And I do like the AI and robots and stuff, but now that we're seeing it actually happen in front of us, it seems like it's all about advertising. So it's kind of gotten boring for me.
That's a great point. Yeah. Yeah, I think, and I'm with you. And I think I'd have to think about it or maybe go back, but I think every guest who's been on has said pretty much the same thing. And just the idea, of aliens, I think would mean so meaningful if actually they existed, if we could make contact with any type of alien, assuming obviously in this case, aliens who are intelligent enough for contact to appear. I know there's been some recent news about perhaps some biological life forms being found. I've heard quite a bit about that. It's not confirmed, but that's interesting in and of itself. But obviously finding intelligent life would be it would change a lot. I mean, the way people think about religion, I suppose, our place as, as humans or as Americans in this case. Maybe we would think of ourselves as Earthlings a little bit more if we knew that there was another civilization out there. So I think aliens just spark something that robots do not. Hey, just a quick interruption here. If you're enjoying the video, leave a comment. Let us know what you think about any of the books we're discussing or any of the points we're making here. I love to read comments and I will answer all of them. So leave a comment down below. Let's get back to the scheduled programming. So Dune or Hyperion?
Okay, that's a good question. I would probably go with Dune, but once again, that was one that I read when I was pretty young. I'm going to be rereading it at some point soon. I'm also going to reread Hyperion. And, I don't know how much research I did when I read Hyperion, but I didn't really know at the time that there was sequels. And so I think if you just read the first one, it feels, it's a great story, but there's still something kind of missing. So when I get to Hyperion, I want to read like all 4 of the books.
Yeah, book 1 of Hyperion is basically a setup.
Yeah.
For the story. The story starts at the end when they get to the time tombs. And that's when the story starts. Previous to that, it's the backstories of each one of the pilgrims. Why are they here, essentially? Anyway, okay, interesting. So hard sci-fi, like technical, science rooted, or soft, more character driven, more literary? What do you prefer to read?
I think I started with I like like tastes evolve, and I started with hard science fiction and really liking the science and all of that, really plausible stories and whatnot. But recently, I've really been into kind of like philosophical science fiction or
Yeah.
psychological science fiction. And even I read this book, Half Past Human, that was written in this really weird biological prose and descriptive writing that was just really bizarre. Definitely leans on the softer side of sciences. And I think lately I've really been liking those more, about like more of what's going on inside of the
Mhm.
characters and their minds, as opposed to like the external things happening. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that maybe that happens also as we read more and more science fiction, just the ideas. It's just difficult to continuously come up with new ideas. So there is a limit to, how much we can read. But I feel like when it comes to character development and beautiful prose, and that internal angst that humans have, there's no limit to it. I mean, I just recently read The Bone Clocks, and that was the writing, David Mitchell, Cloud Atlas. But this was my first Mitchell, and the prose was amazing. The metaphors, it was just like, oh, it was such a pleasure to read. Very soft on the sci-fi elements, but still, I had a fabulous time reading him. So yeah, I mean, I feel that it's evolving for me as well.
Yeah. And I think as you get older, like, I've read, like, there's Robert Silverberg, Dying Inside, and there's other books where some of these characters are getting older, or getting close to middle age, we'll say.
Yeah.
And so, like, it brings up themes that I just would have not even paid attention to when I was younger, and now they hold a lot more value to me.
That's true too. I think it changes as we read more, and then it changes as we also inevitably age and grow in experiences and start thinking about our own mortality and
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
things like that. And that's the great thing about books. There's so many of them, and there is
Oh
a
yeah.
perfect book for everyone out there. And one thing that I have to say, I don't think I appreciated how subjective the reading experience really is. I think I really thought that there are good books, and then there are like, well, there's the garbage, and there's like
Hmm.
stuff in between. But I thought it was, but it's amazing when I read a book with someone. I've done quite a few body reads. You mentioned the one we did together. We were pretty much on the same page, but sometimes we're like completely on the opposite ends. And it's amazing how each one of us, when we read a book, is kind of seeing this movie
Yeah.
in their own in our own way, based on everything that has happened to us.
Right. Yeah.
You
Your
know,
life experience, your
exactly.
worldview, your background, everything, your parents, it all comes into it. And everybody has a unique experience with it. So,
Yeah, it's determinism at work.
yeah.
So, last question here in the rapid fire. So, time travel. The time travel aspect is really interesting to me because since I was a kid, when I realized that this idea, I don't know when I did, when I first read or watched something that introduced me to the concept of time travel. It's always been one thing that amazed me, and I've always wished I could time travel. But you, Ira, if you could, just one time use, would you be going forward in time to see the future, or would you want to go back in time and to a specific era that you're maybe very interested in historically?
I think I'm really curious about the future. So I'd have to go with the future.
Yeah.
Um, you can read some history books, I guess. It still would be kind of interesting to go back to certain periods, but just seeing some what's going to happen, that's like my big curiosity. It's one of the reasons I like reading a lot of science fiction, to kind of paint this mosaic of all these possibilities that are going to happen
Yeah.
in the future, and know that it's probably going to be in there somewhere.
Yeah. So this is another question that I may have to stop asking. I'll have to come up with new questions because everyone who reads science fiction obviously says the same thing, and I'm with you as well. Even though there are periods in history that I would love to visit, if I had one-time use of this
Yeah.
time travel device, I'm definitely going into the future. I'm so curious about this. Of course, there is that risk of going into the future and seeing that there are no humans left on Earth, for example, and there's really nothing, and Earth looks more like, I don't know, Mercury or Venus. Rather, Venus is hot house
Yeah.
than anything else, and that would kind of suck. But I would take that chance and also like to go into the future. I wonder if I was doing this and asking like fantasy readers who read only fantasy or mostly fantasy, would
Mhm.
they perhaps want to go back to the times of knights, swords, and sorcery, or would they also want to go into the future? We'll
Yeah, that
never
would be a
know.
good question. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, listen, Ira. So these were great answers. I appreciate you sharing your take on all of them. But the name of this show is Why Sci-Fi, and I'm curious about a little bit about your reading. Has it always been sci-fi? Why? What is it about science fiction that obviously stands out to you? Because now you have this growing channel and this big body of work. I mean, you've read so many books just in the 2 years that you've been as a booktuber. I'm sure you've read quite a bit more previous. What is it about science fiction?
Well, I first realized I think we might be similar too. In school, I read like Where the Red Fern Grows.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about this. And there was a couple other books that got me into just enjoying actually reading. And a lot of times it had to do with some sort of emotional reaction, like Where the Red Fern Grows, The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. All these books that I liked gave me some sort of emotional reaction. And then I started just trying out some other books. And someone gave me the first science fiction book I ever read was Ender's Game. And
Mhm.
I knew nothing about it. I just read it. And that twist, the conceptual breakthrough, that got me hooked. And I've always liked stories that have some sort of twist and hook at the end of it. And then as the more I read science fiction, the more I just started realizing that it's limitless, and the things that people could come up with were amazing. And I tried to, at one point, I was like trying to read a little bit of everything. I tried to read some mystery and some, espionage books, and like um, all different genres to see. And I would always come back to science fiction. And it was like, yes, finally, I'm back to this. And I still read a little bit here and there and other things, but there's just, science fiction, I think, can do almost everything that these other books do. Like if you like historical fiction, well, there's alternate reality science fiction books where these people are going back in time into these different time periods. If you like mystery, there's mystery science fiction, there's hard and soft science fiction, there's ones that have fantasy elements. You can, no matter what you like, you could find science fiction that kind of has its own flair on it. And the more I read, I was thinking I was going to run out of books to read, and now it's just like, I think this happens with everybody. The more you read, the more you realize
Yeah.
there's more out there to read. So yeah, and I think I've just always had a natural inclination to science and math, and that also kind of helps. I
Mhm.
do that for work, and I still haven't really like gotten sick of it or anything like that. So
Yeah, that's a great answer. And as you're talking about that, I'm even thinking, I'm looking at the books, looking on my screen at the books behind me, and even just the books that I just put out here quickly. I just grabbed a few just to like have some science fiction books on the side. But even here, I mean, you have the Bone Clocks, which I talked about, very literary, beautifully written, and then you have the Prefect, which I just started reading this morning. I woke up, I finished a certain book, I picked this up. It's great, but it's kind of like a whodunit in space. It's obviously Reynolds, so it's definitely very much rooted in hard SF. He is a scientist,
Hmm.
Then you have Martha Wells with the Murderbot. I mean, kind of
Yeah.
lighthearted,
Yeah.
funny. And then you
Yeah.
have
There's humor, there's satire. I mean, there's like anything
yeah,
you could imagine.
yeah,
People have done
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah. Like you said, alternate reality with maybe Philip K. Dick. There's so many interesting takes, philosophical books obviously. So yeah, science fiction, this is really, for me, I think what separates it from other genres is how wide it is. Like dystopian novels, just few years into the future, the world for whatever reason declining, whether it's environmental or some kind of nuclear annihilation, which obviously was written quite a bit in the 60s and the 70s, was on everybody's mind, in the 50s as well. So you have so many different subgenres that are under this broad umbrella that we
Yeah.
call SF, and it's never ending, because you could go into different pockets of it and then go down deep into that, because there's a lot in each one. I find not all of them work for me. Some of the more humorous ones I find don't really work for me well. I don't love Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy. I read the first book in the Bobby verse. I didn't. I wasn't laughing out loud, and I was like, "Well, this doesn't seem serious enough." If I'm not, if
Hmm.
I was actually laughing, yes, but I'm not laughing. Iain M Banks can make me laugh with some of his books, some of his humor. As he inserts humor, oftentimes into his drones, for example. They're very like frisky and humorous. I like that a lot. Kind of cynical.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
know you. I know you've read, I think, a couple of books by Iain M Banks.
Just player of games, but there was
Okay.
definitely the little sinister little robots and stuff
Oh
like
yeah,
that. But yeah, were great.
you played a big role in that book.
Yeah.
The drone. Yep. Well, listen. Okay. Speaking of books, well, actually, maybe I asked you when we were exchanging a text yesterday. I'm always curious. You've been collecting books. I watched your book hauls. They're pretty massive. I have a lot of books. My wife thinks I have too many books. I'm like, look at Ira.
Yeah.
Come on, this is nothing.
I,
Do you
I'll
have a book
always try to keep the bar set nice and high for you.
yeah, yeah, there's gonna be like an IRA a meter.
Yeah.
I'm very low on the IRA meter. But do you have a book that you hold dear, like something that is that you find, it could be for actual value, or it could be just for your personal,
Yeah.
I don't
So I got
something that you
two.
want to show off.
I like this question a lot because I'm an avid reader, but I'm also an avid collector, like you mentioned, and people that have probably seen my channel. So the first book I'm going to show, I haven't read it yet, but I love going out into the wild and going book shopping. And I
Yes.
found this book in Montana for $2. And it's probably the best like monetary score that I made. And it's Octavia Butler's Survivor. And I rarely saw any Octavia Butler out in the
Yeah.
wild. And I
What a
said, I'm going to grab this. And I come home and I'm looking, and people are selling this for like $200, $300, $400 because
really.
it's a book she never wanted reprinted. So the only way to get it is this original signet or the original hardback of it. So it's in pretty good condition. It's got like a real clean spine, and I paid
Yeah.
$2 for this thing. And so this is
Wow.
like the best score I've ever made out in the wild. And some of these old original paperbacks of Octavia Butler are just awesome. The artwork on them
Yeah.
is fantastic, but they're very expensive and hard to find.
Yeah, I
She,
read Dawn not too long ago, and I loved it. Dawn by Octavia E. Butler was amazing. I loved the aliens. We talked about the aliens in Moat, in God's Eye, which they were great, interesting physically, and then kind of the slow reveals in that book really added. So the way they were written, the aliens, the mystery, and continued all the way to the end. So they're really well done. But I thought the aliens in Dawn were just as interesting, maybe even more, very mature take on aliens, kind of very nuanced. Are they helping humanity? Are they villains? Have you read Dawn?
I actually have not read anything from her yet, but probably next month I'm going to be breaking into some of her stuff. I've heard it's a little darker than you would think because you see all these modern reprints, and I
Oh,
mean
there's
the covers
covers are
look kind of,
horrible.
yeah, they're beautiful, and there's like people on the cover, everything looks kind of happy, and then people read these things and they seem to be a little dark, which I mean, I like that in my science fiction. So
Yeah, I mean, that's another great reason to collect vintage as just for the covers.
yeah,
Even if the book alone, inside of the book is doesn't hold up. The covers are amazing because some of the covers that we get these days, and I think Butler is a fabulous example of that. They're really not great. I
yeah,
think most of the one that I've seen, they're kind of a little bit boring,
yeah,
definitely
yeah,
vanilla. But yeah, Dawn is a good one. It's the only one. And well, I read Bloodchild, which is short stories, and one of the short stories kind of ties into that. I'd like to read Kindred, also light on
yeah,
science fiction, but it is kind of a flashback, like time travel story. So that's another one. Parable of the Sower also is one that's on my list of heavy, difficult dystopian novels. And yeah, so she's amazing.
yeah.
But Survivor, that's a
And I
great.
think she only wrote like 10 or so novels and just a handful of short stories. So you could, she's one of those authors. It wouldn't be too hard to kind of get through all her entire catalog,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, that's true. That you could complete her catalog fairly easily. It is difficult with some authors for sure. I could definitely see myself wanting to read everything from Butler at some point. Uh, so yeah, do you have any other books you wanted to
I have
mention?
one more book. This one I purchased from a bookseller that I buy from a lot. I didn't find it in the wild, but it's one of my favorite authors, Clifford Simak. One of
Yeah,
my favorite books of his, City, and this is the original paperback from Permastar. That's like in really good conditions. It's like one of my prized possessions.
it's beautiful.
That's in my collection. Really
So
love
this
this.
was this would have been from the 50s, right?
Yeah, I think this one was, let's see, 1953, first
53.
printing. It
Yeah,
came out in a hardback from Gnome Press in 52, and then a year later in this, like these Perma books or Perma Star books, find a few of these old paperbacks, but they're they were pretty cheaply made, so it's kind of hard to find some of these in good condition, and I was able to
well, you got lucky.
scrounge.
That's a beautiful one. I have one. I think more easily found cover, and yeah, it's falling apart a little bit. But City is great. It's a stitch-up novel,
Yeah.
and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fascinating. I liked it more than Way Station. I thought I would like Way Station more just from the what I knew about it,
Hmm.
and it was okay. I enjoyed it. I liked it, but I think City would be. I only read those two.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you read anything that is better than from Simak that you would recommend?
Well,
Anything
so
else?
I read City and Way Station quite a while ago. They were, they're probably his
Yeah.
two most known works,
Yeah.
and they're both really good. But recently, I read Project Pope, which was really good. It's kind of philosophical science fiction and he goes like everywhere in this very short novel. All of his novels are like 250 pages,
Yeah.
somewhere around there, and he covers so much ground in that book. It's really cool. He always has these a universe where everyone's kind of more or less trying to get along, so it's
Mhm.
not as dark as like some of these other things. And then Goblin Reservation was a really fun read.
I've never heard of
And
that. Goblin Reservation.
yeah, and it's probably after these two, it's probably his like third most popular. And
Okay.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. He goes into a bunch of weird places in that one too. So
Okay. That's
yeah.
good to hear. Yeah, he's got this kind of a softer side, I think,
Yeah.
perhaps from what I've read.
Yeah, people
From
call him like pastoral,
Pastoral.
where almost like Ray Bradbury.
Mhm.
He doesn't have quite the prose of Bradbury, but he can get into some good prose and describe some areas. He was like from Wisconsin, so he kind of
Mhm.
a lot of his characters are kind of these soft Midwestern
Mhm.
characters who are very kind-hearted, and usually the conflict is coming from some you know event or some sort of uh, thing that's happening. It's not like an evil villain really. So
Mhm.
they're fun to read.
I agree. Yeah. I should look for more CMAC. So those two fabulous books. I love it. Great choices. Now, you gave us two. If you were going on a, if you were to end up on a deserted island, you could only bring one book. Is it going to be one of those teeny weeny CMAC books, or are you bringing something a little bit bigger so you could? What book would you bring? What is one book that you really love to read and reread, and you could be stuck on an, a Robinson Crusoe style?
Well, I went in a different direction with this question.
Okay.
I've thought about this one before because Sean D. Standfast has a thing where he gets people on and he has you go over 10 books that you
Okay.
would want on a deserted island. And some guests on his show have brought up some good points. Like you might end up hating this book after so long. Like you could take your favorite book in the world and end up just not liking it. So
Oh, so you're saying you don't want to take your, because you don't want to ruin your favorite book.
possibly, yeah.
Okay.
And so I went with Stephen Erickson, book 10 of Malazan, The Crippled God. This is
Oh
like
my God.
1,200 pages. I haven't read the first 9 books. These are supposed to be super confusing.
Yes.
And so I'd like just go in with book 10, try to make sense of this. If you can't make sense of it, just make up the story in your head, like what led up to this. Because it's like, I don't know, like 10,000 pages just to get to this point.
Well, that's an unexpected answer.
Yeah, so I think that would keep me busy for a while.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's interesting. That's a curveball. That's a
Yeah.
curveball. I have to say, Richard, also vintage SF, he also threw a bit of a curveball because it wasn't like a typical science fiction story. And now you're coming. Do you read fantasy? Is that something that
I,
you would like to get into more, or have you read a lot of fantasy
I've
previous?
I've read a bit of it, and right before I started this channel, I kind of found the fantasy community before I found the science fiction community, and they were getting me into a bunch of fantasy. Actually, what got me into BookTube was I bit the bullet and I was like, you know what, I'm going to read whatever's in the Songs of Ice and Fire right now because
Uh-huh.
George R. R. Martin might not finish it,
Yeah.
and I'm subjected to maybe getting spoilers. I had no spoilers going in. I hadn't watched the show. And so I read the books and I was like blown away by them. I started watching videos of other people discussing them. And they started talking about like Steven Erickson, the Malazan. So I got all 10 books of these, but like, I don't know if I'm going to read these at this point. Like, they're pretty low on my TBR list, but I've read like, some of Stephen King kind of gets into fantasy in a way. I think we've both read the Dark
Yeah.
Tower books.
Sure.
I've read a few shorter standalone fantasies, but I do want to read more of the classic fantasy. There's that Ballantine series of adult fantasy that
Okay.
Lynn Carter kind of put together. And there's some really interesting books in there that have got my attention. And some of these always kind of like border between science fiction and fantasy. But I want to kind of go back and read some more of the classic fantasy and then maybe read some more modern stuff too. I've read like some Joe Abercrombie and some stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Pierce Brown, he's kind of like in the mix there of
Yeah.
science
Yeah.
fiction and fantasy.
The Red Rising.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I think, and I think the one thing about, especially reading the reading fantasy that everyone talks about, it seems to me like most, if not all, the famous ones are pretty fairly large series of books.
Yeah.
Whereas in science fiction, you could pick up, there are a lot of standalone, especially vintage science fiction, classic science fiction. There's going to be a ton of short standalones, so you can really kind of. It's a big commitment to get into Malazan. It's a
Yeah.
huge commitment.
Yeah.
When I started this Stormlight archive, I read the first 2
Oh,
books, and each one was over 1,000 pages, and I liked it. But I'm like, oh God, I mean, I just don't have the time to read Oathbringer. I think it's like 1,200 or something. That's gonna take me most of the month because I have obviously many things to do. So it is a bit difficult.
Yeah. And
to,
I've
commit to
recently
it.
found like through YouTube and other recommendations, there's these older authors that were writing, a mix of horror and fantasy and science fiction.
Mhm.
Like, everybody knows about H.P. Lovecraft, and
Sure.
then there's Clark Ashton Smith that I haven't read yet. He's he's soon on my list. There's all these authors that were writing these really great short stories that were kind of a blend of all this unique writing, and finding some of that's been great too.
Mhm.
But yeah, that Ballantine series, I think it's mostly standalones. There are some series that were mixed in there, but a lot of standalones. Even Poul Anderson, he wrote a fantasy book called The Broken Sword
Okay.
that's in that series, and he mostly wrote science fiction. But
Yeah, Tau Zero.
Clifford Simak wrote some fantasy books, and there's
Interesting.
a lot of these
Okay.
authors that kind of dabbled in. So
Yes, I see. I see your knowledge of fantasy is fairly broad as well. That's
probably not for the modern stuff as much.
right.
I mean, I loved those Joe Abercrombie books, though. The First Law, I read that trilogy or whatever it
Great
was.
characters.
Have you read that?
I read just the first book.
Yeah.
I'm gonna continue.
Oh man, I
Octavia,
love that kind of stuff. But once again, yeah, it's a bigger commitment, and
Yeah.
everybody's talking about it, which
Yeah.
I'm kind of I've always kind of been a little, counterculture in a way, or go the opposite way. So
I love that. Do you also feel pressure having science fiction channel to just end up reading mostly science fiction? I know you do throw in I know you really loved, for example, Rosemary's Baby. I remember you talking about that book some time ago. So you do mix different genres. That's basically horror, a horror story. I watched the movie. I never read the book.
Yeah,
But do you feel pressure to read
I'll kind of read whatever I feel like, but I've read some books where I just like, I'm not going to do a video on this. Like I read Stephen King's latest short story collection, You Like It Darker.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's a ton of videos of people talking about these, and I watched them and I was like, I don't have anything original to say about these. I enjoyed the collection a lot. It's amazing what that guy is still writing at his age. But I just chose not to do a video of that. But like, if something stands out to me and it's unique, I mean, I even read Van Daniken's book, pseudoscience, and I was like, it just was interesting, and I decided to do a video on it, and got a lot of funny comments and people talking about reading it back when it came out and stuff like that. So.
Eric Von Daniken. I remember him still, like when I was a kid in Poland, his theories were popular for some reason. In Poland, it was like all over the place. And then I probably haven't heard anyone talk about Von Daniken until you brought him up. That took me back many, many years to the 80s.
I kind of have an interest in all that some of those weird conspiracy theories. I don't like take it too serious, but it's fun stuff to see what's out there.
Well, keeping it fun, a little bit of let's see how good you are. I have a couple of books where I want to read the first line from a book, and I want to see if you can recognize it. I think you will. I think I maybe picked, knowing how deep your knowledge goes. I think I'm giving you layups.
We'll see.
That you're not going to have any problems with. The first one, especially, I think might be.
The man in black walked across the desert.
No, it's not that bad. it's not quite that bad, but it's, perhaps. Okay. Well, we'll see. Anyway, if I went a little bit too easy, I apologize. But let's see. Maybe I'm setting you up. I'm calling this easy, and then you're gonna. I don't know. So let's see. So I have the book. You can't see the book.
Okay.
All right, listen, Ira. This is chapter 1, first sentence. The sky above the port was the color of television tuned to a dead channel.
Yeah, that's an easy one because I read it recently too, and I tried to read that book like 3 times before I could finally finish it.
I watched your video. Yes, and it was so funny.
Yeah, and that's Neuromancer by William Gibson.
Ding, 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 ding. Yes.
Yeah.
Ira wins.
I tried to coin a term for his prose too. He has neon prose.
Yes. And I remember that neon prose. I thought it was fantastic. You calling it? I think we have to make that popular. So
see if that's
the reason why I chose this one is because this is the book I finished last night.
Oh, nice.
So that's why I knew you read it. Most science fiction lovers have read it or tried to read it.
Yeah, tried to read it.
tried to read it, and
Wait,
and
well,
I'm
what do you
laughing at.
think?
I'm
Don't keep me
sorry.
in suspense. What do you think?
It's rough.
Yeah.
It's rough. I really I have to say it's one of those books that I struggle with because I do not like to be. Confusion is okay, but once I lose my bearings, it becomes a little bit difficult to get through a book. But this one, I didn't have a hard time getting through it. I know you DNF'd it a couple of times. I remember you talking about it. Then I think you read Burning Chrome first, just
Hmm.
sunk into the short stories, some of the backstories even,
Yeah.
and that's probably the right way to do it. I wish I did that. I got through it. I liked it. I have to say, even though I was confused throughout the book. Well, maybe not in the beginning. The beginning, I felt like, okay, it's not so bad. I'm
Hmm.
getting this Japan, this, like, and then like the story kind of starts. We end up coming back to the sprawl, this huge metropolis, on the East Coast, and then the story really starts, and then I just realized, what's going on? Where is this going on? What I and it was just from then on, and I tried to go back and read again and look for clues, and it was a bit of a chore,
Yeah.
but I never felt like I wanted to just throw the book away. It was well written. It was the writing was good enough, the prose was good enough. I don't know. It worked for me. It worked for me, but I probably didn't get most of it. As far as what's going on at the end, I always felt like I think I know what's going on, but it's like through a haze.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I felt.
Yeah.
Was
It's
it
never
similar
a book
for you?
that's going to be on like my top list. I appreciate it for what it was, what it is. I know people can just absorb themselves into it, but it was a challenge for me.
Yeah,
And I don't know that I ever want to reread it, but I definitely want to read more. I want to read Count Zero here pretty soon.
yeah.
The next book that's kind
That's
of
the next
loosely tied. I've heard people say it's easier to understand and it's just like a better put together novel almost, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm happy that I read it because I
Yeah,
did a video not too long ago, like a list of shame. And this was probably my biggest one on it
I
because it's,
remember that. Yeah.
yeah. Thanks for checking it out. It was probably my biggest one. Like if I had to pick one, that would have been the big one because it's such an important book. Award winning, numerous awards, Nebula
Yeah.
and Hugo and Philip K. Dick. I mean, it's gotten everything. And so, but I've been putting it off because I knew it. I'm not going to probably have a full grasp of what is going on. And I may struggle through it. And it took me a little bit longer to read it than it's, it's not a huge book. It's like 270 pages. It took me probably twice as long as it would take me normally to read 270 pages because I was really trying. And even with my brain engaged and really trying to be present, I was still losing. He really does not hold your hand at all. And I just noticed I put this one down and I started reading The Prefect, and here I can see Alistair Reynolds. I don't know if I can find how his writing. Well, I won't find it. How he kind of explained things right away. There's a moment in this when one of the prefects, these are like police officers, let's call them, has the option of manifesting, meaning he's not present in the room, but he could manifest. And even that would have been pretty easy. Manifest, like there's no need to explain. But Alistair
Mhm.
Reynolds says, manifest. They're like, parentheses and explaining being present in the room while your body, like, what? That was unnecessary after Neuromancer. Come on, you don't need. But it was
Like the polar opposite.
total opposite. Total
Yeah.
opposite. I don't think he always does that because I haven't noticed him over explaining things in like House of Suns. Have you read Alistair Reynolds?
No, that's this month I'm gonna read Century Rain.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
I haven't read that one, but that's probably a good place. I think any of them really. I've read a few. House of Suns is definitely my favorite. I love that
Yeah.
book quite a
I'm
bit.
looking for that one, but I found
Yeah,
this one and people said, yeah, it's a great place to start. And I forget the exact premise. I really kind of like going in blind. I don't even read the back a lot of times, just kind of let's see where they take me. But like Neuromancer is one that I studied for. I read the
yeah,
back and I read the glossary that's online to describe what these terms were, and you could still be lost, So yeah.
Yeah, and I think perhaps, and you mentioned Malazan. There are some books where the author, I think, goes into it with that purposefully. It's done. There's a reason for it. I think it's a different reading experience when as you're reading, as you're immersed in a reading experience in a book, you're slowly absorbing and slowly figuring out what this world is like, as opposed to a world just being presented and explained.
Yeah.
Considering how crazy some of the science fiction worlds are, a little bit of explanation I think doesn't hurt, because it's still amazing. When you
Yeah.
have all these terms that don't make any sense, it can be frustrating too. I was a little bit
Yeah.
frustrated with Neuromancer at times.
Yep. Yep. There's definitely authors who don't necessarily hold your hands, but you
Yeah,
trust them that if you keep reading, it will get explained. And
yeah,
you'll read an author that's like this, or you'll just hear that, just trust me, just keep reading. It'll all make sense.
yeah.
And I love that kind of stuff, the discovery of as you're reading through. With Neuromancer, no, you don't even get that. Like
You
some of this
get
stuff might not
nothing.
be fully explained, or it might just take many times reading through it, or intense amount of concentration. I don't know, but yeah, definitely not one of my favorites. But yeah, I think I'm like
I
you. I'm
agree.
I'm really
I
glad I
agree.
read it.
I knew it was going to be difficult, and it was difficult. I thought I was going to hate it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. So
Yeah.
let's give you one more, and I think this
Okay.
one, if I remember how it starts, might also be one that you will guess. But let's see. If nothing else, I wanted to bring this one up for alternate reasons. So let's get into it. This is, hang on. First sentence. This is the story of a man who went far away for a long time just to play a game.
It's another. That's a gimme. Yeah, player of games, Ian M Banks.
Yeah, this one, it's probably not even such a,
I love that copy.
yeah, this is a nice one. I didn't read this one because I read
Oh
another one,
yeah.
like one of the more recent ones. This is a nice one. I do love this one. Yeah, player of games. I know you read it because I watched your video. Have you read you haven't read anything else, just player of games?
No, but I
Okay.
recently found Consider Flea Bass. I think
Yeah,
that's how you
that's the
pronounce
first
it.
one.
Yeah, and a lot of people said like you don't have to read them in order, and a lot of people say start with Player of Games. I liked it so much. I'm pretty sure I could have started with Consider Flea Bass, but
Oh yeah, that's how I
um,
that's how I did it. I started
yeah,
with Consider Fleabag.
and I definitely want to go read that one, but I'm really curious. Like I can't remember exactly where I heard about some of his non-science fiction, like The Wasp Factory,
Hmm. I
and
just
there's
picked it up
another
recently.
book. They're very hard to find, but our library has so many Ian M. Banks books. They have all of his science fiction, and they have all of his like because he just goes by I think Ian Banks when
That's
it's
right.
not
For
science
his
fiction.
contemporary literary novels, it's no
Yeah,
M.
yeah, and just reading player games, it's like I know this is an author I can connect with. I just like breezed through that book. I loved it, and so definitely want to read more from him soon. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really becoming a huge fan of Ian M. Banks. I haven't read any Ian Banks yet. I did pick up Wasp Factory, which is from what I've got, it's an interesting one for sure, and I want to read that too. I'm gonna try to read all of them or most of them certainly. But the culture books are amazing, and the cool thing about them is they do take place in this universe that I find fascinating. A universe that I could see myself
Yeah.
living in, because you could do pretty much, you could be whatever you want, do whatever. There's no laws, there are no
It's a
rulers.
utopia, right?
Yeah, kind of a utopia.
Yeah.
Yeah, post scarcity, so you could just kind of choose your own adventure and go. But also his writing is good, in that each book, like for example with Alistair Reynolds, he's good. I liked Revelation Space. I love House of Suns, Eversions. I'm liking this one so far, but it's the same author. It's kind of a similar structure, same book, space opera. Now with Ian M Banks, each one of his books is different structurally. Also, like if you read Player of Games, if you were to go to the next one, that's Use of Weapons. That one actually has a very challenging structure, like a framing
Hmm.
style. With two storylines kind of going in, the opposite directions and kind of merging and meeting, and some big twists, and it can be confusing. But consider Fleabag is just kind of like an adventure. Yeah, so far, each one of his books had a different feel, different twist to them.
Didn't you also read a non-culture
Yeah,
book of
The
his recently?
Algebraist.
What was it called?
The Algebraist.
Oh yeah,
The
you really
Algebraist.
got me wanting to read that one too.
So good.
Yeah.
The Algebraist was amazing, and that's a great standalone. I have a feeling I read this with a couple of books with Whitney and Sam. We all enjoyed it. All of us really loved it, and Iain M Banks died young. He had cancer. I have a feeling perhaps this would have been just another side project. He had his culture. I think he wrote 10 books in the culture series, and the algebra it's a different universe where he can experiment with things in a bit of a different way. But it was fantastic. The ideas, you mentioned the conceptual breakthrough, like stuff like that. It's there, like things that I thought about as I was reading that I haven't thought about before. Like for example, typically, living on a planet, whatever the planet might be, we think about living on its surface, and planet is not just the surface, it's all of it down to the core. So then imagining living on a planet where you're not just, and it's a gas giant, not just on the surface, but anywhere. And like the ideas, that the aliens, the adventures, fabulous. So the Algebraist is a good one, that not enough people talk about it because it's fantastic.
Yeah,
See,
definitely on the lookout for that one.
I recommend it. I had a good time. Whitney loved it. Sam loved it. And I don't know if I heard anyone else talk about the Algebraist. Yeah, we had a great time with that book for sure. What are you reading now? Or do you have anything exciting that you're on your docket?
Right now, I'm reading Islands in the Net. It's got one of the most 80s science fiction covers. Bruce Sterling, he was buddies with William Gibson. There was kind of this class of authors that were all kind of experimenting with cyberpunk or other things. I wouldn't really even, so far, I mean, I'm just a little ways in, but I wouldn't really call this cyberpunk. But
the cover, when you pulled it up, I thought about Gibson right away. The cover has that aesthetic a little bit.
Yeah, and it's like it was written in 1988, and he was speculating on what the internet was going to become. And I mean, I'm just a little ways in, but I'll talk about it more when I finish it and everything. But he's nailed some things like eerily well. It's pretty cool. Like,
yeah, you know what? You have to tell me. I'm sorry, I should have wrote this down in my notes. I thought I would remember. You talked about in your recent video, maybe even in the last one or one prior to that. And the video is doing really well. You read a book. It's got Einstein on the cover. What is that book? Tell me about it, because
Masks of the Illuminati.
I got the title.
Yeah, Masks of the Illuminati.
Yes,
by Robert Anton Wilson. Yeah. So
you enjoyed that?
Yeah, that's like I was talking about before. Like I've got an interest in some like conspiracy theory, secret societies, occult stuff. I mean, I don't take it too seriously. Maybe when I was younger, I maybe did a little bit on some of these things, but it's very unique. It is sometimes classified as science fiction, but I would say it got barely any science fiction. It's more of like a historical fiction. And Robert Anton Wilson is just an amazing guy. He was very well read and knew a lot about these historical figures like Albert Einstein and James Joyce, and Aleister Crowley is a big character in this one. And he wrote this really bizarre, interesting story. I'm definitely looking for more of his fiction because it's like nothing I've really read before. It's really,
yeah. It sounded from your description as I watched the video, and I was doing something as I was watching the video, so I couldn't comment. But I was interested. I was fascinated. I'll link the video down below for anyone who's watching and is interested in checking a book that sounded unique. It sounded different. The structure, the premise, it was very interesting. And yeah, and the video's doing really well. I think. It's got
Well, yeah, I did a magic ritual before I did the video, and that's what's got it going so well.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I'm still cleaning the carpet in my office here from the deer blood and all that.
Okay. Well, we got plenty of deer in Colorado, so when we finish the video, you'll tell me what the mix is, so I can get my videos to pop like that. Because
it's just bizarre. Like, I didn't think anyone was going to be interested in that video because it's not really science fiction. I've never done. I mean, I did that Van Daniken book, which is probably the closest thing to it. Because Robert Anton Wilson did also write nonfiction, and he kind of gets into conspiracy theories and aliens and secret societies and all these different kinds of things, and science and religion. He kind of blends everything in together and then calls it all BS, which is what I love about it, kind of. And so, I mean, I was like, I got this Timescape edition of this paperback, and I remember hearing about this guy, 30 years ago, and I was like, I'm going to read this and throw a video out. And for some reason, it caught wind, compared to my normal videos.
Yeah, when I looked, because I never heard about a book. I never heard the title of this book, so I was very interested in it. I always try to watch every video you put out, but here it also struck me that you had so many views already, and I was like, what is it? What book is this that I've never heard of? So yeah, it is interesting how the algorithm works and suggests a video. Maybe it's the Illuminati in the title. Who knows?
Yeah, and I think Robert Anton Wilson, he's a pretty interesting guy. I think he has a pretty good following, and I think if there's a lot of videos of him out there speaking and doing interviews and talking about all kinds of different topics. So I think people that were into those kinds of videos, and some of his Robert Anton Wilson's videos have like, gazillion views and everything. So maybe just because his name was in the title, it got served out to a big audience or something. I don't know.
I guess I can't imagine he is that searchable, but maybe you never know.
I try not to overthink it. Don't worry, I'm not going to pivot my channel and just cover Wilson from now on.
Well, listen, you got me interested. I'm sure you got a lot of people interested because the video's doing well and you got tons of comments there.
He wrote this book. It's science. I think it's more science fiction. I'm on the lookout for it. It's called Schrodinger's Cat.
Okay.
And the cover of the paperback is hilarious. It's like a cat that kind of has this human face, and it's like really creepy looking. But it's this whole trilogy he wrote, and he gets definitely into the hard R-rated end of stuff, but I've heard that series can get into some like interesting topics. But he takes everything very lighthearted and doesn't take anything too serious. So, but it's not like humorous. It's not like a comedy. It's yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna link that video down below once again. Yeah, slowly wrapping up. We're approaching 1 hour. Time flies when you're having fun, Ira. This is awesome. Tell me a little bit. I know you're reading the masterpieces. You're reading through that still. How much of a dent have you made? How far along are you? What are the plans for your channel? Is it are you continuing on the trajectory? You're obviously doing so well, or is there a pivot? Are you anything new coming up for you?
I'm a very determined person when I set out to do something. So I'm definitely going to read the 140 books. This one, Islands in the Net, is book 88.
Okay.
That I'm choosing to read in my order that I've gone. So, I'm approaching 100, which is, it's taken 2+ years, just over 2 years. It's probably going to be like 3+ years because I'm reading a bunch of other stuff in between. I'm not just focusing on this, but it's been a lot of fun. It's opened me up to a bunch of authors that I probably maybe wouldn't have found, even though a lot of these are pretty well known. I've found some authors that are still kind of fly under the radar a little bit. Plus I'm, knocking off some of these masterpieces that I hadn't gotten to, like Moten's Got Eye. It's kind of forcing me to read some of those. I read Ringworld and Neuromancer, which were books that I just always pushed off. And so it's been really good. And when I finish that, I'll probably do some videos, maybe try to do some sort of ranking on some of them or do something like that. And
Oh boy, could you imagine if you did a video of all of them ranking from like whatever 140 and then going? That would be quite a video.
I think I'm going to have to break it up. I've already got some plans of how I'm going to do it. And so, yeah, I kind of have some plans, although it's still quite a ways in the future and everything.
Yeah.
My plans might change. They've kind of kept evolving as I keep reading through them. But I keep like all kinds of spreadsheets and data on all this stuff. And I have this like a very unique scoring scale, which gives me a lot of kind of like resolution to sort things really well. And so
you're analytical at heart.
Yeah. But other than that, just, I about a year or so ago started doing collaborations with other people, and that's been kind of the highlight of the channel. Want to continue doing that. I'm definitely slowing down here a little bit in the summer. I think you're probably a little bit like me when you live in a place that gets winter, then when summer hits, you feel like you have to be outside.
Yes, I do agree. I do agree. Okay. Well, listen, I think the fact that you have this anchor with your masterpieces of science fiction, reading through them is awesome. I wish maybe I had something like that, because sometimes I'm just like, okay, what am I doing? I should do a video, but like I'm searching for ideas. Whereas you can always kind of look back and just stick to your main core, the spine of your channel, and then pepper that with some interesting things. And you've been doing so many amazing collaborations that I enjoy watching as well. So I recommend that everyone who hasn't, which I'm sure we're kind of in the same place on BookTube. There probably aren't that many people who watch my videos who haven't seen IRA and SF Words of Wonder. But if you are that person, then you definitely are in for a treat, not just because of all the amazing reviews. And I love your reviews. I will say that because you give such good synopsis of books. This is something that I struggle. I've tried to do, but I'm just not good explaining books. You have a gift, and then you always hold back. You don't spoil them. So I think you give enough to really kind of get a sense of, do I want to read this? And then you also add at the end, kind of typical, but you do it in a good way. What's good, what you liked, what you didn't like. I just kind of get excited. You're more like, analytical. And it's very, very helpful for me, and I'm sure it'd be helpful for others. So yeah, there's so much good content on SF Words of Wonder. You have to go check it out.
Well, thanks, Bart. It means a lot, because sometimes you're sitting there wondering if anyone's got any value out of this or anything. I like enjoy making the videos. I don't have any plans on stopping, but it's always good to hear.
I find value watching those videos, even when I'm not planning to pick up a book. It's a book that I don't have, because of the variety of books that you read, and how you talk about them, and kind of getting into the themes and the storyline, and just kind of giving. I enjoy just I got a taste of the book by watching your channel, so it's great. And yeah, you've been doing many more collaborations than you did in the past, so that's also exciting. And I love to see the growth also. I mean, I think this is part of why we're doing this, also to challenge ourselves a little bit. I know for me, starting and talking to a camera and about books, you have I definitely do bit of a imposter syndrome, like I shouldn't be, I'm not good enough. You hear somebody else who is more eloquent or has read so much more, but you know what, in the end, I think after 2 years for both of us, I think I started maybe a little bit before you did. I find that I've grown also as I've been reading and talking about books, and it's been amazing to see you grow as well with your videos. And I don't know, do you feel like personally you've also gotten something out of not just reading, but this also BookTube thing?
For sure, the community, the comments, you know, the amount of reading, paying closer attention to my reading, knowing that I'm
Yes.
going to talk about it. The whole thing has just been great, and it's been a creative outlet. I think
Yeah.
I've mentioned this before. I think we kind of have the same thing, like treating this as a hobby and just having fun with it has been great. It's never felt like a chore, really. You know, if it takes, I'm pretty regular about putting out videos because I mostly like to record them right after I finish while it's fresh in my
Okay.
head. But if I don't get to it, it's like it's not going to ruin anyone's day. The world's going to go on just fine without the
Oh
next
yeah.
video from me. So just kind of like taking it easy and doing that. So
That's great. So just before we end up, one more question here about your process, because I'm curious. This is more for me than for the viewers, probably. Do you, when you finish a book, do you write a script? Do you take notes on it, or is it just, do you kind of like turn the camera on and you have some structure, but you talk? What is your process?
it's changed a little. Like when I first started, I wrote out like a format of I'm going to talk about this, and then I'm going to go pros and cons, and it's kind of evolved into a bit more of an organic thing, which I like that better. But usually, I think if I my best videos, I think personally, like maybe I finish the very end of the book in the morning. That's usually when I do my best reading over some coffee. And then I kind of digest it a little bit. Maybe I go for a run and I don't wear headphones and I'm just like, and I'm sorting it through in my head and I'm kind of putting together some of the things I want to talk about. And then I come back, you know, take a shower, clean up, and then film the video. And those tend to be like my best clear-minded videos, and haven't read anything in between. I usually don't write any kind of script. Sometimes I'll write names down because I'm horrible with names. But that's
Okay.
usually about it.
Okay. Yeah, that
But
sounds a lot like me, actually.
yeah, try to keep it loose. Like, I mean, I think anytime I've got a chance to talk to someone in real life about a book, that's kind of how I approach this. Is like, you know, you're kind of, if you like the book, you're trying to get them pumped for it, and
Mhm.
you know, you don't want to spoil it, but you want it to just be very loose and conversational, and or that's how it is like when you're talking in real life to people. And so that's just how I've my wife's actually the one that's encouraged me the most to start the channel, because I would describe books to her and she'd be like, you know, you should really just start a channel. So
Is she continuing to watch your videos? Is she
yeah,
a
she
fan?
watches every video I put out, and
Yeah.
I usually have her watch them beforehand just in case I mess something up. Or
Before
she's
you
my kind of
publish,
she's my
she lets
editor.
it.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, my wife watches as well. I was really hoping that my kids, my girls would watch, but and they did in the beginning, but then they kind of got bored. So
Yeah, I
I thought,
remember back you had your daughter on, you guys read a
yeah,
book together. That was really cool.
I know,
I
yeah.
love that kind of stuff. It's like,
And it kind of like freaked me out a little bit because they had like tails.
The kids had tails.
Yeah,
Why would that freak you out?
I don't really know what it did. But
We have tailbones, which
yeah,
are
but we don't-
vestiges
we don't
of
have like tails.
no, but it's close.
the wholesome
Yeah, she's
side
she's
of
she's a
the internet.
sophomore in high school, and she's too busy now, and the friends
I
and all
know.
of that. So yeah, it's amazing. I watched that video just not too long ago, just to kind of see it because it came across, and it's amazing also how much she's grown since that video. So yeah.
You got that frozen in time now to look back on that
Yeah,
and
and
remember
it's
it.
great. It's a great memory. So I love it. This is a big reason why I enjoy uh, doing this. And obviously my daughter. I did a video with my wife also, but
Oh yeah, yeah.
but talking to like-minded friends like you is the big thing for me. Also, I'm discovering as I've opened up a little bit. I wasn't sure if I would be good enough to like carry a conversation, but I'm enjoying it quite a bit. And this conversation's been amazing. I also loved our conversation on your channel around the moat and God's eye. So I'll link that as well because we had a good time chatting. And yeah, this was amazing. So thank you, Ira.
Well, thank you. We should plan maybe in some future to do our next
Yeah,
buddy read, start breaking or
let's
getting
think about it.
ideas out there. And then I have a idea for a video I'll send you a message at some point about it. Definitely want to have you on. It would be a little different, more casual thing, maybe
Okay.
5 to 10 minutes, having people on kind of more in a live setting. I have an idea of something I want to maybe do in the future, and you're definitely one that I'd want to have on there. So keep you posted on that too.
Yeah. So the collaborations will continue, everyone. Please go check out Ira's channel. Subscribe if you haven't watched a bunch of his videos. You're gonna love it. You're gonna have a good time. So thank you again. Episode 4 of Why Sci-Fi is in the books.
Thanks, Bart.
Thanks.